So as we work through this lesson on word problem strategies, one of the things you want to keep handy and add to is this document that has these columns of less than or equal to, greater than, and greater than or equal to. This is not for the symbols. This is supposed to be for the words that represent these things. So if we look at our first example of x is at most 30, when you think about the word at most, well, we know we're going to have an x and we know we're going to have a 30. So we have to decide what kind of symbol we're going to put in between that. So one of the things I like to think about is if I put my 30 on the number line and I think at most, I ask myself, does that mean I can go over 30 or do I have to stay under 30? So if you think of it, you have at most of something, that means you want all of this information underneath or below 30. So that tells you that you're going to be less than. But then the question is, can it equal? So you think, can it equal? Can I equal 30 if I'm at most 30? And I say yes, you can equal. So you're going to make sure you put a closed circle in there and your underline there. So if this is at less, so this is less than or equal to, I'm going to put that up here in this column. I'm going to put at most. So I'm going to think about that. If at most is less than or equal to, then at least should be greater than or equal to. Okay, so as you work through these, you need to come back up here to your columns and add some of those words into the into your list. Okay, so as you read them, you know a student is going to be X and 15 and a half is going to be your number. And so you can kind of think that through for each of these and go ahead and put those numbers in the variable down and then come back and think about what symbol you want to put in between them. So if you say you have to be at least 15 and a half years old, the question is, can you be under or are you over 15 and a half? So can you be 15 and a half? Can you equal that? So when you think about it that way, you have to be greater than or equal to 15 and a half. Remember that you can also flip this around so that the variable is on the other side. Be aware that that is a possibility because you might see something like that on your test. Okay. So I want you to work on these kind of on your own with a partner and think about what these words mean. Budget. What does it mean to have a budget? Is that going to be a greater than or less than? Can you equal to? Okay. And then come back into this document and check your work. All right. When you get down to number 8, 9, 10, and 11, it's not just straightforward a variable and an amount. We have some operations taking place here. So if we look at sum and product, 5 less than, times, and increase, we're going to have to use some operators in these. So if I think sum, that should tell you that you're going to be doing some adding. So 5x plus 2x is at least 14. So at least means I want to be over 14, but I can also be equal to 14. Okay. So then you're going to combine your like terms, which that's old. We've done that before. And then divide by 7. And so that we get x is greater than or equal to 2. Remember that if we were to have divide this by, if this were a negative 7, what if 7 was negative? What would have been different about our answer? What should we do differently if 7 had been negative? What should we do differently? Think about that and keep that in mind because you might see that on your test. Okay. Product of x and y. Product means multiplication. So when you have variables, you don't need to put any symbols in between or anything. This one already tells us that it's less than or equal to 4. This particular problem, we cannot graph on a number line because it has 2 variables. So we would need to graph this on a coordinate plane, which has an x and a y. So we can't really use that number line for this one. The number line is for one variable. Okay. All right. So we're going to pause here for just a few minutes, let you do a little bit of work, and then come back to some more strategies for interpreting graphs and word problems.